Wayne Butler, I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Chester and Lester. I got to fess up. I called them the Molester brothers out in California. They was molesting eggs in December at Evans Avenue breakfast. I want to thank him for inviting me to come share with y'all, and Calvin for picking me up this morning, or James and Calvin for taking the call and picking me up, and whoever else is involved in the committee. Thank you. It's a privilege for me to get to come here. I don't take it for granted. I hope I never take it for granted. I don't think it's a big deal that I get to be here. I just think it's a blessing in my life that I get to participate in your convention. I just want to thank you for inviting me into your home, because I know what it's like when people come to my home group and we want to entertain them and try not to laugh at them and be kind to them and considerate. Just in case you don't like what I got to say. Figure I may as well butter up my toast. It's really good to be here. I don't know about you. If you're new, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. I want you to know I love Alcoholics Anonymous more than anything on God's green earth. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I even love it more than Budweiser, and that's a challenge. Nothing, I don't care what you drank, it wasn't Budweiser, if it wasn't Budweiser. And I mean, I drank it, I loved it so much, it made the Clydesdales look good. I wasn't interested in sheep. I'm not wired right. I want you to know that right straight up right now. There's something going on in my mind that I'm not usually aware of until I start thinking. And then I find out I'm very important. I become aware of my being and how sensitive I am and how afraid I am and how I don't feel like you look, how I don't blend in with you. The book says that we are people who normally would not mix, especially in this crowd. We all men, I would not have mixed with you, I promise. Just because you ain't got what I want and I'm not willing to go to any lengths to get it. Say. Oh, God love it. God help me. First, before I get started, I want to introduce three of the people I sponsor. They flew out here from California to be part of this. Come on, get up, guys. This one over here is Reed, alcoholic. The big, ugly, dumb one there is Jason. He'll wave at you. He's new. And that's Gary, alcoholic. All right. The people I sponsor are important to me, quite frankly, because I don't have anything to laugh at myself about much anymore. I just watch them. I hope you sponsor people. Sponsorship has played an incredibly important role in my life, not just in my sobriety alone, in the event of not drinking, but it's been incredibly important to my entire existence and what I've learned in my life. And I'll share that a little bit later on. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I have a hard time. I'm retarded. I just have a heck of a time keeping track of what I'm going to say anyway. I wish I could just play a recorder and just quit right now and get over this. You know, I got these things in my stomach. I know it doesn't look like I'm nervous. It doesn't look like I'm shy probably, but I'm incredibly shy. I don't know how to keep a conversation going unless I'm talking about myself. And nobody wants to hear about that. And so I got to sit and listen to you. And you talk about things like the weather, the bulls, the bears, mosquito bites. I know what you talk about, but I don't know what to say. You see, I'm always thinking, and I'm always afraid to say the wrong thing, and I'm afraid you're not going to like me if I do talk to you. And I know you're going to find out what I'm really like, and as soon as you find out what I'm really like, you won't have anything to do with me anyway. And that's how I grew up. I come from an alcoholic home. I had a dad that's a chronic alcoholic, a mom that was an intense chronic Al-Anon, a real weird brother, and a sister that just could beat me up any given time she wanted to. And I don't want to get into the trauma of that. I mean, part of it's my story, but I just don't want to go into that, so I'm not going to too much. But if you're from an alcoholic home, you understand. Interesting things went on that had a definite impact in my failure to grow up. I grew up feeling stupid, dumb, and ugly, and I don't know why. I look in the mirror at an early age, and I think to myself, Butler, it's too bad, pal. It's going to be a long life. You are butt ugly. God gave you big feet and little everything else. You're in trouble, pal. Now, I told myself that all by myself. Now, I had one pimple right square in the middle of my forehead, and if I popped it, I knew my face would fly off. I didn't know what to do. They didn't have them patchy things where they take out zits now. I didn't. And I had 13.5-inch feet, and I just was awkward. You know, in my mind, I was Fred Astaire. In my feet, I was Moe, Larry, and Curly. I was. And I didn't know how to talk to people. I just didn't talk. I didn't know what to say, and I was scared to death because every night between 1 and 3, my dad would come home, and I would be trying to find a hiding place because I didn't know what was going to happen. He might beat me up, might beat my mom up, might terrorize the family. I don't know what he might do. I had no idea how that affected me. You know, I'm an alcoholic today, but I was a pre-Al-Anon until I took my first drink. And I guess I better talk about drinking. You might think I'm a depressed, codependent, looking for someone to nurture me, I guess. I don't know. I'm out of my mind most of the time until I found the most gifted, blessed thing in my life. I got put in a retarded class in 9th grade, and I stayed there till I graduated high school. I made it through high school all the way without having to read one book. They called me retarded. And since I like to do what I'm called, I became retarded. I started acting goofy. It has its advantages. See, there's only 12 of us in the retarded class, and I made it to the top of the heap in a hurry. I was the #1 retard. I was. And I could go to the girls' bathroom without getting detention. And no teacher would dare ask me a question because they wasn't sure how I'd respond. And you know, I'm sitting there, if I know the answer, I don't want to raise my hand because then you're going to think I'm smart and you won't like me. And then I'm terrified that you will call on me and I don't know the answer and you'll laugh at me. I lived like that for approximately 35 years of my life. I was a child in a grown-up body, and I didn't understand these emotions I have. I don't understand this feeling I have. I don't fit in. I was at the Midnight Mission in Los Angeles, and I was sharing to a bunch of Skid Row drunks just like I was, and I was sharing that I knew how they felt. I'd been where they were. I understand what they thought. And this gentleman who happened to be African American was sitting right about where you are, and he jumped up and he said, "But you don't know how it is to feel black." And I said, "You are absolutely right. I don't even know how it is to feel white." Now that's a problem. It'll create disassociation. But it was true, I don't. I would feel better when I was in a crowd of some other kind of personality because I feel different already right from the gate. I feel like I don't fit in, I'm not a part of. And when I'm with an agency of peoples that are not like me, then I'm different, and I'm okay, because I know I'm different. But if you put me in a group of people, 6'3", 240 pounds, white, I feel different. That's confusing. I grew up like that, and I don't understand it. Well, we had a guy that took care of the retards. His name was Tom. Tom was our pal. Tom took us places, cared about us, bought us ice cream cones, asked us not to bite him or nothing. He took us to ball games. He loved us retards. And if he gave any of the other ones more attention than me, he had hell to pay, let me tell you that right now. I'd make him look bad. I'd embarrass him. I'd pick my nose in public. I'd do something to make him feel bad and never, ever give someone else more attention than he's given me. Now, I don't know where that came from. But I was 17 years old. I weighed 6'3". I was 120 pounds. I felt stupid, dumb, and ugly, and Tom took me to a party. I went to that party, and I stood up against the wall, and I watched everybody else dancing, having a good time. I'm over against the wall. In my mind, I know I can dance like Fred Astaire, but I know if I take one step, I'm going to trip and look like a fool. And I don't know what to say to a girl. How do I talk to a girl? And Tom brought me over a brown, long-neck bottle with a red, white, and blue label. I like that because I'm a patriot. And it was Budweiser. He said, "Here, drink this. It'll make you feel better." I said, "Okay." So I drank it, and it tasted terrible. I said, "Tom, that tastes terrible. I'd rather have a Pepsi-Cola." He said, "Drink another. You'll get used to it." Oh, boy, I did. I did. I got to tell you about Budweiser. It did something to me that biologically and chemically it is not supposed to do to a human being. I went to that party 6'3", 120 pounds, scared to death of everybody. Somewhere between 4 or 5 Budweisers, I got so good looking I couldn't stand it. Baby! I did. I grew muscles I didn't know I had. Everything grew. I looked across the room and I eyed me a blonde and I went right up to her, found out that night sex meant 2 people. Oh yeah, I'll quit drinking. I blacked out that night. Came to the next morning, found out I had fun. Didn't know who I had fun with, but I had fun. Found out her name was Bonnie George Patrick, and she was 16. Short time later, I heard my dad talking to her dad, I expect, and I'm retarded. I don't know nothing about nothing, and I hear him talking about hunting. My dad said something about a rabbit dying. My dad says, "You got a problem, pal." I didn't know what that meant till he said she was pregnant, and I knew that. That's a problem. And he said something about statutory rape, and I thought, oh, I don't know what that means. So I went and talked to one of the other retarded kids. So I decided I was in love when I found out marriage would end going to jail. So we got her dad and my dad to agree, and I went to Palmyra, Missouri, got married on the way back in Palmyra, Missouri. I'm a married man, 17 years old, in the retarded senior class at high school. With a 16-year-old wife with a baby to be. Just couldn't wait for the next one. So I joined the Navy. I'm restless, irritable, and discontent on the natch. I don't need any help. That helped it. And I found out I could get in the Navy if my dad signed the papers. But since I was in the retarded class, I had to sign the Naval Reserve because that gave him a year to watch me. Because Vietnam was cooking and they were wanting bodies. So I joined the Naval Reserve, my dad signed the papers, and I want out of there, pal. So I went to another party. I wasn't drinking Budweiser again because I don't want no more babies. And I saw this bottle. It was clear. It was tequila. I've never had that. I don't know what that is. As far as I know, it could be 7-Up. So I drank the whole bottle. Tom says, that stuff will catch up to you. I didn't know it. Do you know what that means? I didn't know what that means. It means when I drink tequila, I'm talking to God. God sat right on my lap. And I talked to God. I told him about my family, about my terrible, abusive, alcoholic father, my poor mother who takes it, and I don't like her for that, my brother who's cruel and mean to me, we don't like that, my sister, I don't want her around, the new wife and the kid, God, they're yours, take them. What do you think I ought to do? I heard God tell me, kill them. Well, that's what I heard. So then I waited for the message on how to do that because I don't have any experience at killing a family. Well, the answer never came, so I figured I'd have to do that on my own. So apparently I went home, I went in the house, blew out all the pilot lights, turned all the gas on, went on the front porch and waited for my family to die. I came to the next morning with my mother kicking me in the shoulders with a seriously bad headache. Everyone else had headaches. I forgot to close the windows. Well, we went to the doctor, and the doctor was evaluating me. That was fun. He goes like this with ink. What's that? I said, well, it looks like ink blot. Said I was defiant. Now, I wasn't there when the doctor talked to my mother, but you know, he knew I was in the Naval Reserve and he knew all about that stuff. So here's my take on what he did. Remember, I wasn't there. He said to my mom, Mrs. Butler, your bouncing, brown-eyed baby boy is nuts. And if you don't get him out of here, he's going to kill you and everybody else around him. He's a potential homicidal psychopath. Always wanted to have potential. I'm a massive unrealized potential. So He says, let's get him shipped to Vietnam. That'll take care of it. That's what he had to have done, because shortly after that, I'm at Treasure Island in San Francisco, and I'm on my way to Vietnam at 18. Now, I went over there. I never drank a drop, because those first 2 drunks concerned me. I didn't want to quit. I was just waiting. We need some space here. Something's happening I don't understand. So I'm in Vietnam. I don't drink nothing. I don't smoke nothing. I don't do no drugs. I just smoke 4 packs of Pall Mall cigarettes a day. I'm gone a total of 3 years. I come back 21 years old. I've got 3 rows of ribbons. I've been recognized for bravery with 3 other members of my unit. And they made me a captain's driver. I'm a legend in my own mind. I can't hardly stand it. My duty consists of picking the captain up at home, taking him to the ship, and doing some meagerly things, and then taking him home at night. Now, I want you to know something. I loved my captain just as much as I love my sponsor and as much as I love God. I just thought he was the greatest person in my life at the time. One night he asked me to babysit his kids, and I would never say no to him. I said, I'd be glad to babysit your kids. So on the way to his house to pick up his kids, I want you to know how my mind works. My mind says, Wayne, you ain't drank for 3 years. Let's get a beer. After all, you've only drank twice, and nothing really bad happened. Let's look at the record. First time you drank, you did a very godly thing. You reproduced. You brought a child into the world. Second time you drank, you saved your family's life. You didn't close the windows. What can it hurt? And I stopped and got a 6-pack of Bud. And I drank it. And I put the kids in the car to go get another 6-pack of Bud. And that's all I remember, except for when I came out of that blackout. My captain was standing 2 feet from my face, 2 inches from my face, right there, screaming, where's my kids? And I don't know. I was restless, irritable, discontent. On the verge of pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. We found them. They were okay. I couldn't understand why I was so mad. If they'd have been hurt, he had a right to be mad. But I said, we found the kids. They're okay. I won't do it again. He says, you got to come see me Monday morning. You're restricted to the ship. So I, of course, jumped ship. Because when you tell me thou shalt not, I've got to do that next. I don't know what it is in my mind, but if you tell me something that I can't do, I'm doing it now. It's like seeing a wet paint sign. I got to know. I do. I do. I get slick about it. Now, if it's wet, I want to sue the city. My mind's a funny place to be. Shouldn't go there alone. Whoever wrote Home Alone has to be in this program. Got to be chairing the meeting somewhere. Well, the captain offered me 2 options. One, go to treatment. I said, I've drank 4 times in my life. Treatment for what? He says, you're a chronic alcoholic. I said, what? So my dad's the alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic. I've drank 4 times. And he said, well, you can think whatever you want. But you had a blackout. We consider that alcoholism. I said, you said option. I understand that word. He said, your option is we're going to kick you out of the Navy. I said, I'll take it. I was a career man. I love my uniform. I'm proud of the red, white, and blue. I want you to hear that loud and clear. I'm proud of my country. I'm glad I get to wave that flag. And I'm not mad at my country. But I took the discharge. Unbelievable. I've only drank 4 times. I got home to a wife and now 2 kids that I didn't want, that I didn't understand what was going on, and I started drinking a little more. And my wife divorced me because I became unpredictable. I tried to blame it on Vietnam. But I secretly, unconsciously knew that there was something wrong with me. And I didn't know what the problem was. When I tell you what I know my problem is, it might surprise you, because I haven't mentioned it yet. Alcohol is not my problem. Alcohol only became my problem when it quit making me feel normal. That's when it became a problem. Alcohol was my solution. I had no idea when I left the Navy I was protecting my right to drink 4.5 Budweiser so I could feel like you look, so I could be a man amongst men, so I could be a man amongst society and not injure anybody. Because when I drink, that's how I feel. And then I black out and do things I horribly regret the next morning. Sometimes I don't even want to come to. I married my second wife in a 5-day blackout, had no idea who she was when I came out of that blackout. She had to produce a marriage certificate to convince me I was married to her, and as soon as I saw it, I'm in love. All right. Couldn't believe I married her if I wasn't in love with her. I wish I could remember it. At least she wasn't pregnant yet. We stayed married 12 years. And I want you to hear something. I stand up here, a man who stole the childhood of 5 kids. I destroyed the dignity and the respect of 3 women. And I hope I can balance the books in my sobriety. That's why I'm here. I'm here because when I come do this, it takes a book that was out of balance and starts one day at a time to balance a checkbook that I wrote. I wish I could blame alcoholism. It is, but it isn't. Self-will run riot took everything away from me that meant anything to me, and it took away anything I never saw. You know, it's a heck of a deal when you want things you'll never have, as I did. I wanted to be a professional baseball player. You have no idea how bad I wanted to be a professional. I've got a fastball that would splinter the barn door. I was up to bat in Little League, and the game was riding on my next swing, and the umpire called a 3rd strike. It wasn't a strike. It was high. He said, "No, it's a strike. You're out." And I said, "So are you, pal." So I hit him in the head with a bat. He said something about Jimmy Pearsall, and they don't need 2 of them. But I wanted to play baseball, and I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that, and I said I was sorry, but it didn't help. Have you ever done that, said you're sorry after you've done something like that, and they just don't appear to listen? God, I love Budweiser. I do. So things got bad. To move along, my second wife had 2 kids, and I was getting worse and worse and worse. And alcohol wasn't working anymore. No matter how much I drank, whatever it was I was searching for never came back. I had nothing to fix the madness that was on my mind. I was afraid all the time. I was paranoid. I was afraid to open the mail. I couldn't go to the door. I couldn't answer the phone. I couldn't even go to work some days. Sometimes it's because I was drunk and hungover, and sometimes I was just afraid to go to work because I didn't know what I'd do. And that's the way I lived my life. And my second wife had a horrible time with me. God love her. I stole her. I stole 12 years of her life, and the madness that was in my mind. And I remember when it got down to the end of my drinking, I was starting to mix drinks because I'll tell you that in a minute. But I took Budweiser and Ripple wine and mixed it. God, that's good. But it didn't work. And so I took and added Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill. That didn't work. I threw in Mad Dog 2020 Grape. Now, when you put them things together, it will work. It will work to give you terminal diarrhea. You know what terminal diarrhea is? That's where you go till you're gone, pal. Ain't no weight gain. You can eat all the protein you want. It's gone. And it requires split-second timing. And you got to have good decision-making skills. It's like one time I was at Larry's Oasis at the bar, and I thought to myself, seems like gas. And I made a decision, one which I would like to have taken back. Lent a new meaning to the word shea leg. Oh, I miss drinking. I had a series of mornings and nights where I would come home, and my wife would want to know where the rent money was, and I couldn't tell her. She'd send me out for a gallon of milk, and 3 days later I'd come home and the milk would be cottage cheese. I'd lose my wallet, and I couldn't tell her what I really spent the money for. And then one night, I've got to tell you this, I'm not happy about it, and I'm sure not proud of myself, but one night I came home in the morning, I was hungover, and a series of circumstances happened. I was so jealous. My wife had said something to a guy. She said, hi. You know, that scares me. I don't know about you. And she said something else like, can we pay the rent? I'm not sure. But I threw her down to the floor, and I took my .357 out, and I put it to her head with my two girls watching me, and I pulled the trigger. I'll never forget the look on their face. I want you to know that. Gun misfired. I've still got that round at home with an indentation in the top of the cap from the firing pin. It didn't go off. She left me anyway. I said I won't do it again, baby. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'll quit drinking. I promise. She tried to get control of my kids to take them out of my life. And I said, please don't take my baby girls. And she started walking out the door, and I said, please, I'm begging you. I got down on my knees. I crawled up to her and put my hands around her ankles and begged her not to leave me. And she goes through the door, takes my kids out the door, and as soon as she got 15 feet outside, I said, go ahead and leave, you bitch. Who needs you anyway? And for what? I'll replace you. A new bus comes by every 15 minutes. I slammed the door shut, broke a couple of windows, and then slid down the door and balled myself into an attempted suicide. And I didn't know what was wrong. I thought I was evil. I was absolutely powerless, and I sat there in absolute self-contempt and self-loathing. I was filled with pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization at what I'd just done. 3 days later, my wife came back. She said she loved me and missed me. There's a program for her. I think she should have read that book, Women Who Love Too Much. I'm going to tell you what I did. I did the most merciful thing I could do. Because you know, when I said, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, there was a voice inside me that said, yes, you will. And it isn't going to be long. Because you can't not drink. And I moved out. She couldn't understand why I was leaving. And I didn't know what to tell her. I just left. I moved out and moved down to Skid Row because I had nowhere to go. I had no money, no job, no nothing. I moved into an abandoned car behind Harvey's restaurant. And I would go into Harvey's restaurant and I would sweep and mop and wax the dining room floors for 2 sausage sandwiches on whole wheat toast. I wouldn't get my sandwich until they were done waxed. One night he came in and he gave me my sandwiches, and then he gave me this brass coin. And on one side it had these 2 A's. See, Harvey was about, 5 foot tall. He had this big swollen, broken up, blood vein nose. Didn't know they called it whiskey nose. He says, I'm going to give you an address. I want you to go see these people. They're friends of mine. They're going to help you. And I thought he meant free food. And I will go anywhere at any time for free food. So I found that address the next day. I was kind of drunk, but on the side of the building there was a sign that said condemned, do not enter. It was in the basement of that building. They were in the process of moving. I didn't know that. Wouldn't meant nothing to me. But I looked down the cellar steps. The cellar windows were painted black. I found out later that was for anonymity. There was a light bulb on a cord, and it was on. And so I went in. And on the way in, I failed to notice that the doorway was 5'10"ish, and I'm 6'3"ish. I caught it right at the eyebrow, and it knocked me out. I landed flat on my back, bounced my head on the floor. I looked up, and here's a table full of 6 or 7 old people just, they must have been talking about death and dying, because you could tell it wasn't going to be long for any of them. And I got to tell you what the ugliest one did. The ugliest one there, and he wasn't even 5 foot tall, he goes just like this. Slide right on in here, dummy. We got a wrench to fit every nut that comes in the door. I didn't like him right away. That's no way to meet a heathen packing heat. Next thing out of his mouth, and I'm going to be your sponsor. Okay? The only sponsorship I've known about is on baseball teams where they pay for everything. And then he said the only thing he could have said to get me, 23 years old, to come to another meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, if you'll meet me tomorrow morning, I'll buy you breakfast. I wasn't late. You know, sometimes it's hard to get new people to show up. Offer them breakfast. They will be there. So he took me to the Blandine Brady Street group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Davenport, Iowa, to the breakfast meeting. I walk in the door upstairs, and they got these round tables. And they had these bowls of jailhouse donuts. These donuts were so hard you had to soak them for the whole meeting just to chew them. And I said, what's this? And he says, well, dummy, that's breakfast. I said, I can't wait for dinner. Now, I love AA, and especially for what happened during the next 5 years I came to your meetings. Drinking. I came for 5 years and I didn't know why. I don't know why I followed that little lunatic around. I wanted to kill him. I didn't like him. I didn't like him at all. I'd spit on him if I had the chance. I hated his guts. He'd smile, and I just imagined pulling his teeth without Novocaine. Like, he's mean. He said, dummy, where's your ashtrays? I said, my name's Wayne. He says, I got it, dummy, where's your ashtrays? Why I gotta wash them? I ain't dirty them. He said, now clean the cups. I don't want to clean the cups. Clean your own damn cups. He said, I said wash the cups. And then he'd leave. They say, sweep the floor, dummy. I don't want to sweep your floor. Didn't ask if you wanted to. Told you to sweep the floor. And then some newcomer come up and tap me on the shoulder. What are you doing? I'm grateful. This will help my sobriety. Want to help? Loser. Then he'd take me to speaker meetings. Right where this guy here is sitting, Barney'd be sitting there, and I'd be in the back row right where you two are, and there'd be some speaker up here lying like I am. And I'd be talking to him, critiquing the speaker. If I'm not doing nothing wrong, I'm just kind of taking his inventory. He's lying. He didn't really do that. Listen to that crap. What a loser. He's drinking. I know he is. And then my sponsor turned around and looked at me in a room full of 300 people. And here's what I heard him say. Shut up, you goddamn loser. You ain't got nothing we want to hear. Shut up or leave. Go out to your abandoned car. Stupid. That's what I heard him say. Now, what he really said was this. I jumped out of my chair. If you stay there again, I'll kill you. He looked at me like this. I hear things funny. I'm a sensitive person. I don't suffer well, and I don't suffer alone. I believe in that kind of group activity. But I follow them around. They took me to coffee, finally. You ever been taken to AA coffee? Well, let me tell you how they took me to AA coffee. They said I was squirrely. So they wouldn't take me. And I said, Barney, can I go to coffee? He said, okay, dummy, get in the car. In the back, where you belong. Gosh, guy, hurting my feelings. Got to have 20 years to get in the front seat. So then we go up to the Village Inn in Moline, Illinois for coffee after the meeting. 5 guys had piled out of the car. Barney said, dummy, stay in the car. Okay. A couple of minutes later, he'd send one of his other babies out with a cup of coffee. He'd give it to me. Wouldn't even ask if I wanted to drink. sugar. He says, we'll be out in about an hour. And I'd sit there and drink it. And wonder why I couldn't go in. How am I going to get home? I got to sit out here. I can't go home today. Come out of there. Come out of there. Never dawned on me I could have got out of the car and walked 3 blocks to my house. Because when I get to thinking, nothing works. My sponsor took me up to the slogan, think, and he shoved my head into it, and he says, you see that, dummy? I say, I can't help but see it. Say, for you it means don't. God, was he insensitive. And I'm drinking. I can't quit drinking. You see, I found out something about you and I. We can't quit drinking. And you know what a gift that is to know I can't quit drinking? You know, I haven't had a drink of Budweiser or any other kind of alcohol since November 8th, 1977. And it's all one day at a time, and I have not quit drinking. To this day, I have not quit drinking. I know too many people with much more time than me that have succumbed to the desire to drink again. So I know I can't quit drinking. I have proof I can't quit drinking. But one day at a time, I cannot drink today. And if you're a newcomer, cherish that, because there ain't a person in this room, in my opinion, who can quit drinking. But when you band us together in a fellowship like this, we can do one day what I can't do for 1 year. It's a fantastic thing. And I came to you for 5 years and could not stop drinking. You even gave me jobs to do, trying to help me. You gave me an answer to the intergroup phone at central office. I would take a call for help. I would call Lester and Oswald, and they'd go get this drunk and save him. A year later, old Joe Silver would be in a meeting. He'd be bragging about how Chester and Oswald saved his life, but nobody ever mentions the person that took the phone call. I know that. I want my picture up between Bill and Bob. There's room for more. So I'm answering the phone. 4 days I'm sober. I made it 4 days without a drink by answering that phone. And one day, and this call came in for help. And I had this moment of inspiration. So there's a guy named Wayne B. coming over to your house. He's going to help you. I hung up, closed the office. My first problem was, how do I do this? I've never done it. You've all told me you never go on a 12-step call alone. No way. If I go, they'll give Chester the credit. They won't mention my name. So I'm going by myself. They say, I'm supposed to take a big book. I suppose that's big enough to hit them in the head if they get out of line, so I'll take the big book. Let's see, what else do I got to do? Oh, yeah. I heard the old-timers say that they used to take alcohol along to nurse a green recruit through a spree. So I picked up a 12-pack of Bud and took it with me. I'm going to tell you right now, the only reason he let me in that house is because I had that 12-pack of Bud. His eyes got like this. So we went in, we sat down at this table, and I shoved in the big book, said open it up to page 1, and I opened up a Bud and drank it. I did. He wanted one, and I said no. He says, why? I said, you called for help. I drank that whole 12-pack. When I got down to that last can, I looked at him and I said, pal, I'm out of here. I can't take another word of your dribble. You are truly pathetic, pal. I gave him a meeting schedule. I said, you call these people tomorrow, maybe they can help you. And I left. The next day, he went to AA. He has not had a drink since that day. It was my first successful 12-step call. And he ratted me out, the ungrateful puke. The OA police came and showed up and wanted my intergroup key. No, he calls me every year on my birthday to see if I'm still sober. He got 6 months more than me. I wasn't about to ask him to be my sponsor neither. I'd have shot him dead. So I'm going to meetings, and I'm drinking. I'm doing everything you tell me to do, and I'm drinking. I went to a meeting one Saturday night where they give out chips. I wanted a chip. Oh, I wanted a chip. I just could not drink long enough to get them. They didn't even want to give me a newcomer chip because they was afraid I'd take one every day for 365 days. You give me a little podium pass and you'll never get rid of me, pal. One night I was at my home group and they were giving out chips, and this guy got up and got a 30-day chip, and he gave a speech. Everybody clapped, and I was moved. I've got 7 days. I put together 7 days. They called out 90 days, and this gal got up and got a 90-day chip. She talked, they clapped, she sat down, I was moved. They called out 6 months, I got up. And I claimed a 6-month chip. They all clapped and laughed. They gave me the chip, I took it, gave a speech about how wonderful AA is, and I love you all. And then I took that chip, and they all thanked me for coming and sharing. And I went down to Bill and Lolly's Tap in Moline, showed Larry my chip. He said, "What's that for?" I said, "Larry, I ain't had a drink for 6 months." He looked at me, said, "I threw you out of here myself a week ago." Said, "I'll punch you in the mouth. That's a lie." He said, "Let me buy you a bud." Okay. I was absolutely powerless. Absolutely powerless. You see, my family's gone. They're gone. Now I'm hanging around AA. This is the only place I got to go. You're the only ones that'll let me do anything with you. And you know what? I want you to hear something. You never said you can't come because you're drinking. You did suggest it works better. I suggest you, if you ever find a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous where they don't let drunk people in, that is not AA. It is a gathering of people who forgot from whence they came. Of course, that's just my opinion. I love AA. We got to keep AA simple, according to the traditions that was written to protect us from me. That's why he wrote them. He wrote them to protect them from him. And they keep us bounded together. Because you see, I kept coming here, and one day, I'll never forget this. I come through the back door of the meeting, and my sponsor yelled out, "Hey, dummy!" It was bothering me a lot. And he says, "This program tends to work better if you don't drink." That got my attention. I wheeled around, I pulled my .357 out of my boot, and I tried to shoot my sponsor in the face. If he'd have been 6 inches taller, I'd have got the sucker. Next morning I came to, naked, in 6-point leather restraints at Franciscan Mental Health Center in Rock Island, tied to a steel bed in the center of a padded room. And I was bruised from head to toe. Had some AA group therapy. Oh, they know therapy at the Moline group. Oh. I had a visitor. You know who it was? My sponsor. Can you believe it? I couldn't get rid of this guy for nothing. He looked down at me, naked, snickering, and he says, "Dummy, there's something wrong with you." I had a clue. He says, "You're squirrely." He says, "I don't know if you're an alcoholic. You may just be nuts." And I'm thinking, we'll find out who's nuts when I get up from here. I'm going to kill you. Not knowing that's why I was there, because I was in a blackout. I didn't know why I was there, and I didn't have whatever it took to ask. I didn't want to know why I was there. And then he says, "You know what, dummy, if they let you up from there," and I'm not sure they're going to, they're talking about a lifetime commitment or a lobotomy for you. You've been a problem for a lot of people for a long time. He says, "But if they let you up from there and come with us and do what we did and still do, you might make it, pal." And he got my attention. And I did get out of there, because Barney went to him and said, "Release him to me." Can you believe that? See, I learned all about AA 5 years drinking. Can you believe that? If anybody ever tells you you can't reach someone who's drinking, that is not true, because the love of one alcoholic for another alcoholic goes beyond that. My mind might be affected by alcohol, but my soul is waiting for something. And only one alcoholic talking to me can reach that part of my being. And I'm so glad I know that today, because I will talk to anybody. Now, you got to behave while you're here, though. They will throw you out. They'll tell you come back next day. But if you're going to act like that, you can't be here. I love AA. I got sober. You see, what alcoholism is an interesting thing for me. All I wanted was for 4.5 Budweisers to make me feel the way you look. Just for a little while. That's all I wanted. And it did it for a while. And then when the insanity was on me and it didn't do it no more, I was left to my own devices, with no God. Now, you know what the problem is? I don't have a God. Lack of power is my dilemma. Pull the cord out of the wall, what do you got? You got problems, pal. And you see in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says that deep down inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. Now, you may think you're an atheist or an agnostic, and I don't personally care. The book says every. And I operate under that illusion. Every person. And then it goes on to say, he may be obscured by pomp, calamity, and worship of other things. But in the last analysis, it's only there that he may be found. And I submit to you that my terrible depression was linked to my distance from my loving Father God. And the farther you took me away from that power, the more naturally depressed I became. To a point where they labeled me manic depressive. They misdiagnosed me. I was spiritually depressed. And alcohol affected my spirit in such a manner, it gave me the illusion that I was okay. And the book says that I have to find a power greater than that if I'm to overcome drinking. How do I find that power? I found it with you. That's how I found it. And I'll never forget how good you've been to me in the discovery of that. But it's been a painful process. You know, in the book it says that the admission price to a new life, in the 12 and 12, the admission to a new way of life is pain. Not the kind of pain I thought about. The pain of remembering. The pain of drawing up all that. Because you know what the obscurity is? The pomp and the worship? Women, for me. Money. Objects. Material things. Those stood in the way of my ability to see the God that's in me. You ever fall in love with someone relatively new? Because you see, I'm serious for a minute, you look in their eye and you see a shining thing that you know is God. Because it is there, in every one of us. The trouble is if you're looking into my eyes and you see God, and I'm new, you got trouble. Because God's in there, but he's so clouded, so obscured, that I'm absolutely forced to live by my self-will until I go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and remove that obscurity. It's really that simple. That's what the 12 steps do. They take that obscurity, 1 through 9, the obscurity, the pomp, and the worship of other things, and move it aside long enough that Wayne Butler can get a glimpse at the God within Wayne. And then I don't need faulty emotional dependencies anymore. But you see, I've got a world of hurt on me. I've done tragic things that I know can never be forgiven. I've got things in my history that I know God will make me burn for. I know it. I don't even need to tell you because I know it. And there was my flaw. I wasn't going to tell. Thank God for the steps. Now, the first year I was sober, I did everything my sponsor told me to do. I followed him around like a whipped pup. I'll tell you what, I had my head so far in his butt, if he'd have turned left or right, he'd have broke my neck. I'd have been dead, on the floor, out, done. And when I started getting interested in girls other than my wife, Barney would go along and tell them my story. So you haven't heard about him trying to shoot his wife in the head, have you? They're gone. Barney, you're ruining my sex life. He says, go home to your wife. I don't like sponsors like that. So the first year I did everything he told me to do. And then I got well. There's a thing called spiritual intoxication that I got into. Because I finally got some relief from my mind. And I went from the level of spiritual awakening to spiritual intoxication. The big book defines spiritual intoxication as two things. 1, spiritual make-believe, and 2, distortion of values. And I had all that. I didn't have a God. I had people trying to tell me that it was my own mind telling me something. And with my pattern of thinking, I should have heard him, but I didn't. So from my second year to my 7th year, I did steps 1, 12, and 13. Normally when there's women in the room, I tell them that if I come up to them after the meeting and offer them to a cup of coffee to talk about God, I tell them to run. Because I don't need none of that nonsense, because I know God really ain't there. But that was my pattern. And in my 7th year of sobriety, having failed to work the steps, having no knowledge of what my condition really was, because I hadn't worked the steps by the big book, I was at an emotional position with no God that I just couldn't. I'm sitting in a room of alcoholics, and I don't get to stay with you. I don't fit. But I've got these disciplines of going to meetings every day, of calling my sponsor regularly, of asking for help in the morning, saying thanks at night. Those are all disciplines I did, even though I didn't believe in them. In my 7th year of sobriety, my mom, my dad, and my grandma, all three died within 3 days of each other. I lost my house, my car, and the kids in a divorce when my wife and I got divorced. My daughter was raped by the minister of her church, whom happened to be my brother-in-law. She attempted suicide. My roommate took my gun and killed a parole officer. I had a bad week. I did not want to drink. Isn't that something? The thought to drink did not occur to me, because when I think about drinking, that's exactly what I do. I am powerless over the drink. But I thought about suicide, and I thought about getting help. So I went to a doctor against my sponsor's knowledge, and the doctor recommended amitriptyline, which is an antidepressant, and I'm not here to give you an opinion on that. I'm just sharing my personal experience. I was going to take it, and I went to my sponsor. I weighed 146 pounds. I had a 29-inch waist. I'd lost my denture. I had no idea where my teeth were, and I didn't care. I asked Barney if I could take the pills. He said, sure. I'm not God. He said, but why don't you try the steps first? That bothered me. My brain exploded. I tried to tell him I've been here for 7 years. I'm doing everything you tell me to do. He says, yep, everything but the steps. He says, you've done the fellowship. You've done the girls. You've done it all. Except for the program. On the outside chance, he might be right. It's like when someone suggests that there might be a life after and that God might be real and the day's going to come, you're going to find out if it's true or not. He says, don't you think it'd be better if you acted as though it were true and found out it was, than acted as though it's not and found out it was? I had this knot in my stomach after I heard that. I couldn't figure that out. I understand it today. Sent me out to California, and I stayed out there for 6 months and got some distance between me and my mind and the stuff that was going on. I mean, it's just so much stuff. You can understand, it's just so much stuff. But I didn't want to drink. And I really didn't want to take the pills. I knew I wasn't manic depressive. I knew it was about God. I knew it was. But I'm scared of God. When you got the history I've got, I was responsible for my nephew's death. When I was 15 years old, my mother asked me to walk my nephew Skippy home from kindergarten. She says, do not walk through Sunset Marina. You know what that meant, don't you? I got to go right through Sunset Marina. And I walked him through, and the school bullies that knew I was retarded were picking on me. They knew I couldn't swim. They tried to throw me in the water, and it scared me to death, and I ran. I wet myself. I'm not proud of that. I'm so ashamed of that sometimes. And I ran so fast that when they yelled out if I didn't come back, they'd throw Skippy in. I just barely heard it, and I just kept running. When I got home, my mom says, where's Skippy? I lied to her and said I already dropped him off at home. Because that's all I know to do, and I don't know. Short while later, the police and my sister show up. My sister is just a mess. Skippy drowned. Now, the kid said that he fell in. I knew what was true. And I knew I was responsible because my mother told me not to go through Sunset Marina at 15. I have other things in my history that I didn't think I could ever make right. But thanks to you guys that have come to the podium before me and shared your worst stories and secrets, and then you smiled. Like you laughed when I told you I tried to shoot my wife in the head. You laughed. Thank you. You don't know that helped. That saved me. I thought you were going to say, you can't be here. Leave. That's what I thought you were going to say. I thought if you knew all the immoral things I'd done, you'd say, you can't be here. You've never said that to me. You've clapped louder. The sicker I got, the more you like me. It's the damnedest thing I ever saw. I couldn't wait to tell you everything. And then I started making a few things up. 7.5 years sober, I read something in the 12 and 12, page 15, paragraph 3. I'd like to recite it for you. It says, AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature. In case you've ever wondered what the carrot of AA is, I believe this is it. The 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which, when practiced as a way of life, gentlemen, not as a 2.3 times a week, drop-in center after care when you need help, as a way of life, the way we're doing it right now. When practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer, who is me, who can enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. That, I submit to you, is all I ever wanted, was for 1 minute out of one day to feel happy, useful, and whole. But you see, when you got a hole in your gut like I had, and the answer is God, and you don't know that's the problem, that you don't have it. I don't know how to get it. I've been to church. I've been sprinkled, dunked, darn near drowned. You ever been baptized, y'all? You ever been to a tent revival? Have you? I went to a Baptist tent revival when my wife took me. I wanted help. I didn't know I wanted to quit drinking. I just wanted help for the spirit that was paining me. I sit right in the front row, and this Baptist minister, he's up there, he's just jumping all over the place, and I'm getting a little scared of him. And all of a sudden, and I know some of you will understand this, I started to feel my spirit moved. I know that's what it was. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drinking. I felt something moving in me. And by the time he was done, I jumped down to my knees with a boost from my wife. And he put his hands on me and said some things, and I honestly believed when I got up from there that I was saved. I believed it. My wife had that Al-Anon hope. We got in my car, we drove home, we passed Larry's Oasis, and I said, honey, I got to tell Larry about this. She said, you think that's a good idea? I said, absolutely. I got Jesus and he needs help. I went in the back door of Larry's Oasis and he was bartending, and I looked at him, he looked at me, and I said, hey Larry! He said, my God, what's gotten into you? I said, the Spirit of Jesus is in me, Larry, and you need it too. He said, damned if I don't, let me buy you a bud. I said, okay. That's not blasphemy, that's alcoholism. It's alcoholism. You brought me to a belief. You helped me uncover the truth about myself through the 12 steps. You see, when I read that in the 12 and 12, I honestly believed that I could become happy and useful and whole if I just followed you guys around like a wet blanket, and that's exactly what I've done for 18 years, 5 months, and 2 days. I have been with you, and I'm happy about it. Now, I used to be Oswald, thank you. I'm going to call you Osborne, but I knew that wasn't true. We were talking, and I was talking to a couple other people about the fact that I've overcome numerous faulty emotional dependencies. You know, I couldn't get a girlfriend after my wife and I got divorced. Couldn't get a date. I'd tell my story, they wouldn't talk to me. I was lonely. My kids had nothing to do with me. I'm 9 years sober. My kids won't have nothing to do with me. My family doesn't want me near their house. I'm sober 9 years. I don't think there's no hope. I hear you guys coming up here saying, and my wife and kids love me again, and I envision shooting you. Where's the hope, man? Like that commercial. Where's the love, man? But my sponsor said, Bunny, just keep doing the drill. I quit trying to change his mind about my name. It was futile. I worked the steps. Now, when I was 8 years sober, I weighed 146 pounds. I had a 29-inch waist, and I was in bad shape, had no teeth. A friend of mine in AA sent me to his dentist and bought me a set of teeth. I had a spiritual experience after I worked the 12 steps. Within a year, I weighed 242 pounds. I thought something was wrong with me. I was growing quick. I thought I had a reverse disease of some kind. I had no idea I was growing up. I had to change clothes 5 or 6 times. And then I did something I didn't think I could ever do. I applied for the Polk County Sheriff's Department in Des Moines, Iowa. The real Sheriff's Department. I didn't think I had a chance. I'm retarded. You see, I've never let go of that. I'm retarded. I've never had a job above menial level. I've never been accomplished at anything. I can't even kill nobody. I'm just a potential. Every time I try, it don't work. I'm a failure at I can't even kill myself. I remember I wrote myself a letter one time. I was so lonely when I was pathetically harassed in self-pity. Have you ever wrote yourself a letter so somebody will talk to you? And then you mail it to yourself and you get it in 3 days and you can't open it because you ain't sure you wanted to commit suicide. And if you wanted to commit suicide, you didn't, and then you're a failure at that too. I was a mess. In my 8th year of sobriety, that all turned around. It all turned around just because I worked the steps. I wish it was more dramatic than that, people. But I worked the 12 steps. I applied for the Polk County Sheriff's Office. A federal judge expunged my record because you went to him with letters and said I could be trusted. You said I'd done things. That I'd done, but I was so deluded with myself I didn't know I was doing them. They had me take 3 psychiatric, well, actually I took a total of 5 batteries of psychiatric tests. Passed them. Said I was a little rigid. Now I'm retarded. I don't do well in school. I went to the academy. I told the truth. My sponsor said tell the truth. I told the people who was in school with me. And they helped me study. They helped me take tests. They helped me memorize answers. And I graduated 4th in the academy. And they gave me a gun. They gave me a .357, stainless with orange tip. Oh, I'd go home. Couldn't wait to arrest my first bad guy. I got about 5 minutes. I was a deputy for 4 years and I loved it. I was a good officer. I learned from you. Now, you know, it's a men's convention, so I feel a little freer to say some things than I would if it was an ordinary mixed convention, but I want to tell you something. I don't know how to be a man amongst men. I don't know how to love you without thinking something's wrong. I don't know how to be a man with men. I think we have to fight. You see, I know if you want the same woman, you go out and kick the crap out of each other and you're best friends. You both lose the woman, but you're best friends. I don't know how to be a man. I don't know how to do this. I'm retarded. I don't know how to do this. My sponsor helped me do it by having me work with you. Now, when I got to the amends step, remember I told you I didn't know how I was ever going to pay that back? How do I give back 5 childhoods that I stole? See, my sponsor wasn't kind to me. He said, dummy, you stripped 5 kids of their childhood. You ain't going to be well until you give it back. And he said, your son, you took away everything he might have done. I said, how do I give that back, Barney? Because by now I'm remorseful. What a wonderful, blessed thing remorse is. It indicates true spiritual willingness. I became remorseful. I wanted to change things. I didn't know how. How do you do it? I don't know how to do it. And I don't want to ask you because you might say you can't be here. My sponsor says you got to sponsor people. He says you sponsor some young people and help give them their life back. I said, really? Guess what happened? I was sober 13 years. I was in court. I was prosecuting a drunk driver. I was witnessing. And I heard the prosecutor talking to this probation officer. They're going to revoke this woman's probation. They're going to send her to prison for 2 to 5 years. She failed treatment for the 3rd time and was arrested for drunk driving. And they said her name was Lisa M. Smith. I said, I know that name. So I snuck over there and I saw the mugshot, and it was a girl I knew in meetings. And that's why I know her. I said, she failed treatment, but she's never had a chance at AA. And the judge knew I was in AA. I said, why don't you let her try AA? And he looked at me and says, well, I'll tell you what, pal. We'll let you and her try AA. I understand that sponsorship thing you do. He says, if you'll agree to sponsor her, I'll probate her to you. If she drinks 1 time, she's going for 2 to 5 years. I said, men ain't supposed to sponsor women. He says, I'm not in AA. I'm not going to argue with the judge. And I started sponsoring Lisa. Got her into AA with you. It wasn't me. Don't let me kid you. Telling you that story, I'm not making you think it's me. It was you. I gave her to you. And you did it. She went to college, got a degree, got thrown off probation. They didn't want her no more. Now her picture's up at her probation officers, but not because she's wanted, but because they use her as their example of success. And then within 3 weeks, I was working with 3 more women just like her. And guess what? For the last 5 years, I've helped give 4 young ladies their life back. And my sponsor says that makes up for my 4 daughters. Now, here's the kicker. 4 years ago, my daughter got married and I wasn't invited to the wedding. 13 years sober. It hurt me deeply. I called my sponsor, said, Barney, my daughter's getting married and I just found out through the grapevine. He said, send her a card and money. Don't forget the money. I didn't want to. I sent the card and the money. And it's been 5 years since I worked with those 4 women, and they've got their life back. They've all gone to college. They've all gotten degrees, and they got good jobs. My daughter called me up a few months back, and my baby daughter's getting married next month, and I'm walking her down the aisle. You know the daughter that got married 4 years ago? They're going to rededicate their vows in a church. They got married by Justice of the Peace. They're going to get married in a church. Ask me to pay for it, of course. And she's doing it for the only reason to let me walk her down the aisle. And I want you to know something that makes my day. And these guys I sponsor, I guess maybe that was my payback for my son. And I want you to know I have no remorse left over the kids that I stole their childhood from because of the way I acted, drunk and sober. There is payback here. We do get to balance the scales. Now my wife, how do I pay that back? I try to be kind and loving and friendly to her. When she calls me, I don't say things that are inappropriate no matter what she says to me. A year and a half ago, I started dating a girl, very beautiful woman. She's an actress wannabe in Los Angeles. Very attractive, you get the idea, guys. She gets more bids for dinner than I can afford to take her to. And you know what? I haven't asked her one time in 18 months what she's doing, who she's doing it with. I ask her, did you have a good time? And I mean it. I'm not afraid of losing her because I'll tell you why. I have found a God of my own understanding and I plugged into the power source. And I know if she moves on, I'm still loved. This isn't just podium talk. This is the way my life is right now. Because you gave me a plan of action. Steps 10, 11, and 12 have given me concreteness to my foundation. I do it every day. I don't skip because I found out that the rewards of doing it every day far outweigh the pain and suffering of not doing it every day. Wish it was more virtuous than that. I do the 11th step exactly the same way Bill Wilson did, and I've been doing it that way for 11 years now. I wake up and the first thing I do in the morning is I pick out one of the 12 sentences. By the way, there's 12 sentences in the prayer of St. Francis. And I take one each week or each day, like, where there's hatred, let me bring love. That's my favorite. Because it means where there's hatred, where do I do things that cause self-destruction? See, it's about hating myself. How can I bring love to my life without getting all emotionally intoxicated on myself? It's easy. Do things that don't cause pain in my life. Don't do something that will hurt you and separate you from me. And I've been doing that for 11 years, and all of a sudden, everybody's coming back. And I get to come spend time with you guys and have fun. We laugh a lot, cry a little, remember many things that I wish I didn't have to remember, but yet if I forget and slam the door shut, I'm doomed to repeat it again. And these newcomers that I sponsor and the guys that aren't newcomers anymore, they saved my life. I didn't save their life. I don't ever want you, if you ever hear me say I saved someone's life, I want you to hit me right in the head with a big book. You'll never get the chance, Jason. I just saw him hope. I got to wrap it up. I want to thank you for inviting me to come spend this weekend with you. It's true, I'll go anywhere for free food. Most of you, I bet, think I mean breakfast or lunch or dinner. That's not it. You know what the free food is? It's the love of one alcoholic that reaches out and touches me for fun and for free when it's you and me. That's my free food. I will go anywhere for free food. And I submit to you, if you're new, if you do that too, there's hope. For those of you that are new or maybe you need renewed, I would like to invite you to join those of us that are on the high road in the fellowship of the Spirit. If you're new, put one hand in the hand of someone with one day more than you. Put the other hand in the hand of someone with one day less than you. You will be left with no hands with which to pick up a drink. Come with us and do what we did and still do, and you can recover too. Thank you.